Jacob Hartley, who is your Week 15 dark horse of the week when it matters most, the first round of the playoff?
So this all comes full circle, doesn't it? My Week 15 fantasy playoff round 1 dark horse for the 2022 season is none other than my boy Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills.
I thought you were going to say Gabriel Miramontes.
Yeah,
Gabriel
Miramontes. Yeah,
I'll get out there, man, for you.
Look, you might be saying, why would you put your name out there on the line for Gabe Davis? Why would you assume Gabe Davis is going to do well this week when he hasn't really done much at all since like week 10? I mean, he had a solid game in week 11, but he's been under 10 fantasy points since then. And there's always the potential that he's going to go off. He plays with Josh Allen. He's a talented player, but he's the epitome of boomer bust. And, I think he's the most boomer bust player, like even more so than Mike Williams. I even think Mike Williams.
I was going to say Mike Williams probably takes a crack at it, but yeah.
Is more like when Mike Williams is fully healthy, I think he's more consistent than Gabe Davis. We'll have to go look at that to make sure. But for me, Gabe Davis is the ultimate boomer bust. With a player like that, now fantasy football comes down to averages and regressing to the mean, or positive regression, negative regression. You hear that all the time in fantasy football. So if we assume, okay, Gabe Davis, he's a boomer bust player, and at the end of the season, his fantasy points are going to reflect that, then he has to have a blow-up game at some point in these last 3 weeks, right? Like, if you're looking at the law of averages, because he hasn't done it since
science
week 10.
Into this.
So for me, I'm thinking, like, look, the past 2 weeks, he played the Jets, tough defense, and the Patriots, always a tough defense. Yeah, he played Detroit in week 12, had 7.8 fantasy points, whatever. He's playing Miami this week. I believe that Josh Allen is going to want to lay the smack down on Miami for multiple reasons, not regions. They're division rivals. He wants to prove that this division is his or theirs, the Bills. And I think the biggest threat to them right now is the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel might win Coach of the Year. And I have a feeling this is going to be a monster shootout. And I think Gabe Davis is going to have a huge blow-up game this week. Not necessarily, like, I'm not guaranteeing 35 points or anything like that, but I think he's going to give – I'm not going to say my line is 20 fantasy points, but I will not be surprised if he gives us a solid 20 fantasy points. But I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to get us 15 or more fantasy points this week in the first round of the fantasy playoffs in 2022. And I'm also putting my money where my mouth is. I have a dynasty league that I commission, and it's, one of my most important leagues. And I'm starting him over a lot of other guys that I could start. So Gabe Davis, that's my dark horse.
Now, Jacob, 15. I know you said a lot of guys. Give us some examples, man. Who are you starting Gabe Davis over?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So here's the thing. George Pickens, if Kenny Pickett didn't get hurt and he was still playing, and we don't know yet, Kenny Pickett might still play. But if Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback, I'm starting Gabe Davis over George Pickens. And, like, I think George Pickens has been more consistent this year than Gabe Davis. He definitely has. So, like, even if they say Kenny Pickett's healthy, I think I'm still rolling with Gabe Davis. That's how strong I feel about this dark horse.
All right, man. I mean, hey, it's a solid pick. I understand where you're coming from. He's had a couple of off games. I would argue and agree with you at the same time that Mike Williams, when healthy, is obviously more consistent. We saw that in his return last week. A really nice performance. Davis has kind of been floating around lately. He's honestly been a drop candidate for me at some points this year because when you needed him to boom, he didn't boom, and he's busted more than he's boomed. But when you need him the most, and especially if you're, would you say, Jacob, can I ask you this question? The matchup that you're starting him in, do you think you need him to boom? Or are you looking for that guy? Or would you rather have started a guy with a safe floor? Like, do you think he can get you that 2 for 78, that 1 for 52? Or is there someone else out there that you're okay getting like 10 fantasy points with? Like, what's your matchup look like that makes you determine Gabe Davis is my guy this week? Is that kind of the factor? Do you want to just blow your opponent out of the water?
Or do you really think I mean, my lineup has a high ceiling. It's projected. Like, I don't literally projections mean nothing. Like,
sure.
I don't want to say they mean nothing. Somebody works hard at getting those out, but it never turns out what the projections say, like your whole lineup. It never does. And my projections are 170 right now. And that's pretty high for that league because it's a super flex, but it's also 4 passing touchdowns, 4-point passing touchdowns. So like that's pretty high for that league. And I mean, Gabe Davis is my highest projected player out of my bench players. But I just think I'm putting out the lineup that can get me the most points. Let's say, I have a CMC this week. Let's say he's limited because he's injured. He's on the injury report right now. Let's say he's limited, so he's not going to give me 30 points this week. Maybe he gets me 12. I'm looking for Gabe Davis to make that up for me.
I like it. It's a good point. It's good reasoning. And for those reasons alone and many, many more, Gabriel Davis, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills in Week 15, first round of the playoffs. That's Jacob Bartley's dark horse of the week.